If you started watching 90 Day Fiancé recently, you would probably never guess that David and Annie used to be one of the biggest disasters on this show, because now people love them. They've been together for almost a decade, built a life together. Somehow David and Annie became one of those couples that actually made it. But if you go back and watch their story from the beginning, these two are a lot different than the David and Annie we know today. And honestly, I forgot just how messy their story actually was. So let's do a rewatch. And there is so much that happened with these two that I couldn't fit their entire story into one video. So I'm breaking down David and Annie's story into 3 parts. So for part 1, we're starting with how David and Annie met in Thailand. We first meet 48-year-old David, who is living in Asia after divorcing his wife of 21 years.
I had lost my job.
I had lost my house, my cars.
I was absolutely destitute.
Here he was, 3 years post-divorce, he had lost weight, and met 24-year-old Annie. David says that he met Annie while she was singing at a bar in Thailand. Depending on which corner of the internet you end up on, you're going to hear a very different version of how these two actually met. Because there have been rumors for years that Annie was actually working as an escort.
I was sitting in a bar, having a drink one evening, and I happened to hear someone singing, and it was like this voice of an angel.
I have never found anything that actually confirms that. She definitely thought that he was a big shot with money that could take care of her and bring her to the US.
I come from very, very poor village. I go to Bangkok. Maybe I can find some job. Maybe I can find new life. And that's why I meet David. He's not handsome. His heart is very, very big. I love him. Not 100%, but 90%. I want to spend my life with him.
Well, I guess that's better than 55%. Living in America is Annie's dream. And from Annie's perspective, even though he's twice her age, David looked like that person who could actually make it happen. He was an older American living in Thailand. And there wasn't exactly a lot of time for Annie to question any of that, because David proposed very quickly.
After dating for a week or 2, I proposed to Annie. And of course she said yes. We are planning on moving back to America together.
But you can guess what the problem was here. The life that David was promising Annie in America wasn't a life that David actually had.
She hasn't seen Kentucky yet.
David doesn't have any money, and he wasn't being honest about it.
My biggest fear about the next 90 days is finances. Annie doesn't really know about my financial situation. What's expected is to pay a dowry for Annie's hand.
So where was David going to get this money, you ask? Meet Chris, David's personal ATM. I mean, best friend.
Chris basically bought me a one-way ticket to Thailand and helped me hit the restart button on my life.
And if the name Chris is giving you a little bit of deja vu, it's probably because of Sean and Abby. Because like David, Abby had a sugar daddy named Chris. Chris was a very popular name for sugar daddies in 2017, apparently. So why is Chris helping David so much? It's never really explained, but you can tell by Chris's wife Nikki's facial expressions that David mooching off of him was not a joint decision of theirs.
I've lent David quite a bit of money over the years, but nothing that I have felt uncomfortable doing for my friend.
Chris makes it clear that David doesn't have any money. None. So the smooching isn't something of the past, it's a very current thing. Which means that David is bringing Annie to the US and he's still not back on his feet post-divorce. Annie does know that he isn't rich.
If you want somebody that already has $1 million in the bank, I'm sorry, I don't.
And do you sure you can take care
I'm
of
sure
me?
as hell we're gonna try. Yes, that I'm sure of.
But it doesn't seem like she really knows the extent of the situation she's moving into. Because there's a pretty big difference between my fiancé doesn't have a lot of money and my fiancé is currently being financially sponsored by his best friend. She doesn't know how much David really relies on Chris. Because the K-1 visa legal fees? Yep, all paid by Chris. And now even her dowry will be from David's sugar daddy, Chris.
I promised to help David, and I'm committed to that. 50,000 baht, hey, no problem.
The money is coming?
I love you, brother.
Oh,
I thank you for everything.
Does this bother David at all? It sure doesn't look like it. He's just enjoying being celebrated by Annie's village, like he's the king who just rolled in with all of this money, which is funny, because it's not his money.
The village is so loving and welcoming. Never thought this would happen in my life.
Now, say thank you to Chris. So David presents what he has for the dowry, and he's worried because it's only 1/10 of what they asked for.
But they said, right now, we give them 50,000 baht. They have babies there.
But while they accept it, he does have to get them to water buffaloes.
And have 35,000 baht.
I've just taken our money for the tickets to go to America. So I'm feeling a lot of pressure.
And it just gets more absurd because he needs money at every turn for like gold when they're supposed to have their engagement ceremony. It's a really good thing that Chris happened to be visiting Thailand during this because you know David's wallet has cobwebs in it at this point. And during their engagement ceremony, the money part just gets even more out of control.
I don't even know the grand total. I had to borrow more money from Chris just to make it through the day.
It finally ends when David presents Annie's parents with the entire dowry, water buffaloes, all of it. And while the engagement ceremony does end, it's now time for David and Annie to focus on their 90 days in the US. And if you've been paying attention, you know that David has been living in Asia.
I don't have an apartment. I don't have a house. I don't even have a US bank account at this point.
So where do you think they will be living in the US? Yep, you guessed it, with Chris.
Until you get back, back on your feet. You know?
Yeah, till we get situated there. And obviously, I mean, even as we've talked about, I mean, it's a short-term thing. We have 90 days.
He at first asks Annie if she'd help out around the house, maybe cook some Thai food for the family. Okay. But then Chris keeps talking, and we go from cooking dinner to something creepy.
I like to get massages. I like Thai massage. So is that something that you would be cool to, volunteer to give me a massage or something by the pool? Or
Excuse me? I kept looking at Nikki's face because what? I had completely forgotten about this scene and how Nikki just looks way too calm after he had said that. But she did explain on a 90-day fan page that this scene was scripted. The producer asked him to say it and they were fed lines to say while at the table. Oh my God, so awkward though.
Did you tell Chris if you give him a Thai massage?
Absolutely not. What I told him was that you give me great massages.
I cannot do massage.
The plan is that they will stay with Chris and Nikki until the 90 days are up. But Nikki seems understandably skeptical.
So Chris, take him off the that's how I feel. I feel like he's a grown man.
Will the mooch actually move out, find somewhere to live on its own? But that isn't the only problem waiting for David and Annie in America. Because while David has been in Thailand starting his brand new life, he still has an old life waiting for him back home. And that includes his kids. They are all 18 and over, but they're not exactly excited to hear that their dad is dating a 24-year-old. And they also don't know yet that David is bringing that 24-year-old back as his fiancé.
She doesn't know that we're engaged. So you're like raising the ring. I'm like,
Go to lie them.
it's not lying to him. It's just not telling him.
David already knows that going back to America is going to be messy. But before they can even deal with that, David and Annie have one last big celebration in Thailand, their joint bachelor and bachelorette party.
When he's drunk, he cannot control himself.
And this is where we start to see that money is not David's only problem.
Ding, ding, ding.
Need a beer.
I hate when he drunk.
Chris even mentions David's drinking problem. And if mommy Chris is pointing it out, it's pretty obvious that this has been a problem before.
if he doesn't control her, he is going to run her away. I already feel it.
David, of course, doesn't see an issue, but man, David has so much baggage and they're just putting it on a plane and bringing it back with them to the US. Annie has no idea what she's gotten herself into. So they arrive at Chris and Nikki's house officially in the US to start their 90 days. It starts off with a good vibe. David's friends throw a party for him. We do see Nikki's brother Antonio here. If you took my quiz, you know what's coming soon. This is when David reveals that not only does he have kids that are older than Annie, but they also don't know that he's getting married in 90 days.
My daughters will be 27 and 28. My son is 18. So it's only a couple year gap.
Everyone's faces say enough, especially Antonio's. You can just tell as David's talking that people aren't really liking how he's handling really any of this. And we know that Antonio isn't going to keep those opinions to himself for very long, don't we? So Nikki and Antonio try to welcome Annie, spend time with her, and she admits that things aren't going great so far because of David's drinking.
Last night, he not shower, he very drunk. He take all bed. I sleep on the floor.
Oh, you slept on the floor?
Yeah, because he take all bed.
Things escalate when he is again drunk at a barbecue.
This is my brother.
What he said?
Yeah, it's white people joke. Never mind.
Nikki and Antonio point out that Annie is uncomfortable. And while they're trying to help her out, the more David talks, the more heated the conversation gets.
So how can you be laughing while she crying?
So Mommy Chris tries to reason with David. He's Mommy Chris now instead of Sugar Daddy Chris. But David's too drunk to be reasoned with.
Do you think you have a drinking problem?
No.
Do you think that you could commit to not drink for her?
No.
They didn't just bring in a mooch, did they? They brought in a drunk mooch. So things had calmed down inside until David comes back in and says this.
Man, and he is a grown man.
Oh, really? Do you want to?
What?
Please
Sorry,
don't
I'm
hit
trying to
him.
have Nikki.
No.
Because you know I will beat the out of him.
If you missed that, Antonio was talking about Chris and David walks in and says, that's cause you want to him. And that's when this goes from heated to explosive.
He didn't know.
Yes.
Don't touch me because you will get up. I will beat your ass.
It took me until just now to realize that Nikki is holding a baby during this fight.
Take your ugly ass back outside. You ugly ass bitch. You Ninja Turtle penguin Batman ass bitch.
I had seen this scene over the years, but having so much fresh context in my brain now, I can really see how this bubbled up and this fight happened. Nikki, from the first scene of us meeting her and Chris, has not liked that David is mooching off of her husband. Chris has been giving David money at every turn, and then after that, they bring David and Annie into their home. David is not working. Chris and Nikki have small children they're taking care of, and now they not only have someone mooching off of them in their home, that someone is also drinking heavily and making his fiancé uncomfortable. Nikki's brother Antonio is seeing this and seemed to clock David pretty quickly.
What he said to me was disrespectful to both me, my sister, and Chris.
You could tell at the party, he had that look like, who does this guy think he is?
Already coming at you, old, divorced, got kids that he don't give a about or don't care about. Why the do you want to be with somebody like that? You young and vibrant. You don't need that.
So yeah, with all that context, that Batman-ass bitch fight suddenly makes a lot more sense. Antonio wasn't just randomly coming for David because he didn't like him. This was a huge buildup. And I can see why Nikki and Antonio were hoping Annie starts to see what's actually happening here. Because David promised Annie a life where he could take care of her. But now they're in America, he can't take care of her. Chris and Nikki are gonna be taking care of her. He's living in his friend's house on his friend's dime. Annie's the one picking David's drunk ass up off the floor. And somehow, this is only the beginning of their 90 days.
That's not okay. I didn't sign up for this.
The consensus is clear. David needs to stop drinking, or Nikki doesn't think this living arrangement is going to work anymore. That's a pretty rough start. They've barely made it to America. David has no job, no money, no place of his own. His relationship with his kids is already complicated, and now he might get them kicked out of the free house they're staying in. This is the same David and Annie that somehow become one of the most loved couples on 90 Day Fiancé. Still hard to believe as I'm watching this. Because right now, David is so much worse than I remember. And unfortunately for Annie, things don't magically get better from here. Because even if David does stop drinking, they still need somewhere to live, money, and Chris can't keep paying for everything. And that is where we will pick up in part 2. Anyways, thanks for watching. Bye!